Okay.
And I'm going to put you on mute. Hi everyone, welcome to your Wednesday webinar. We're still vetting in a few people, but thanks for hanging on in the waiting room. Yes, indeed, welcome to your Insights in Action Wednesday webinar with Kantar South Africa and IAB. A big welcome to everyone on the line at the moment, and we look forward to hosting you in our session today, and really to listen to smart, actionable and motivating insights to help you make better decisions at this time of crisis. Most of all, we hope you're keeping safe, keeping sane, and we hope today adds valuable insights to help you on this journey we are on together. A big thank you to our speakers today. Big thank you to our speakers today, Marilyn Dutlow Munga, Associate Director of Brand and Innovation in the Consulting Division of Kantar South Africa. And our guest for today's webinar, as you already know, is Vaughan Croeser, Marketing Director for ABInbev South Africa, and we'll introduce them in a bit. Let's just check on that waiting room. I see we've got a few people there. I want to make sure they can all get in. There we go. Right. We are recording the session, so we will be making the video available afterwards, as well as Marilyn's presentation, which we're very much looking forward to today. And just a note that our series of weekly online talks are powered by Kantar's bi-weekly surveys to get a pulse on how the pandemic has impacted advertising spend, marketing strategies and business operations across our industry. We'll hear about the innovations, best practices and alternative measures coming into view that can help us all minimize our risk to our businesses. So just before I introduce Marilyn and we get started, a bit of online etiquette. You'll notice that the chat is on, the Zoom chat, which is at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or certainly mine. Please use that chat to share questions for our speakers. Although the full audience won't be able to see them, we will be collating them. And when we have time at the end of the session, we'll be asking our speakers to share a bit of insights in terms of answering your questions. And for those that we can't answer because of time, we will be getting back to you offline. We've got your contact addresses, so we will get back to everybody. Right, well, with no further delay, let me ensure Marilyn's microphone is on, and let's introduce her. Hold on, Marilyn. If you can turn your video on in the meantime and share your screen, then I'll just make sure, just get the full participant list here. Marilyn, we can hear you? You want to just test that?
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Fantastic, great morning. I'm just going to make sure everyone can get in here. Great. Let's try and share your screen and see if that works.
Sure. I am trying to share my screen.
Let me just double check I've done all the right things. Yeah, you should be able to be fine on my side. Let me switch mine off. There we go, great.
Just a little bit of a lag when you can see my screen.
I'll let you know. I think it must be opening right now.
We can see the screen perfectly fine.
Oh, great.
Oh, perfect.
Thanks, Danilo.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks so much, Paula, for the introduction.
Just a note there, Marilyn, you've only opened up to us to share the main folder. We can't see the actual presentation itself. So the PowerPoint isn't open, the folder is open.
Oh, Zoom. Of course, it was working perfectly just before the meeting. I'll try something different. Oh.
It's looking good. So now we just need to open up the full screen.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Danilo.
Okay, so everyone can see my screen?
Looks great, and we can hear you great.
Okay, fantastic. So thanks everyone for joining, and I hope you're all keeping warm and safe. Today we're going to talk about purpose in the time of pandemic. I'll be sharing some guidelines on how to be more purposeful in a time where really it matters more than ever. So the case for brand purpose has been made. I think we're largely gathered today as a marketing fraternity, so I feel like I may be speaking to the choir. But of course, not everyone is bought into the idea. Some brands and some organizations are still trying to figure out whether purpose is all just fluffy marketing stuff. But in reality, it's been proven time and time again that brands with a clearly articulated and activated purpose grow ahead of those that don't. And it really stands to reason, because when we talk about brand's purpose, it's really just about defining your role in society beyond simple functional and emotional benefits. So that clarity of thinking and understanding your role, of course, helps you make better decisions, communicate more clearly, and really helps the organization get behind something a lot more interesting and important in the world. Consumers demand purpose, right? When we check in with consumers globally, specifically younger consumers, millennials, centennials, want brands to have a point of view on the world. Employees also need to work for companies and brands that have purpose. And we know that when a company does have purpose, employees are 3 times more likely to stay with that company. So simply put, your brand won't grow without having a clearly articulated purpose. I think we all know that achieving growth is harder than ever before. So why skip something so foundational that has been proven to drive growth on your business? So in our brand Z tracker, again, global tracking data over the past decade, brands that are perceived by consumers to have a positive impact on the world grow faster than those that don't. So in a pandemic, really the need for purpose is absolutely amplified. And without it, you are simply flying blind. Life as we know it has fundamentally changed. Usually when we face crises or challenges in life, it attacks or it affects one part of our life, right? So you either have an issue at home or at work, but really what the pandemic has done is it's impacting every part of our lives, how we learn, how we socialize, how we entertain ourselves, how we work, how we keep fit, and really affecting our well-being physically, emotionally, socially, and of course, financially. We know South Africans are hugely concerned. 81% of South Africans say they are concerned at how this has impacted their everyday life. And this is much, much higher than global averages. So South Africans are disproportionately concerned on the impact of the pandemic on their lives. And during the time of crisis, consumers are really reflecting and thinking about what matters most, what's essential in my life, what do I want more of, and what do I want less of? And they're prioritizing their time and their budgets accordingly, right? So 78% of consumers say this situation demands that I'm even more proactive about financial planning. So making more deliberate, thought-through spending choices versus kind of blind consumption and complete impulse. So a lot more considered purchases happening in the market. And in times of uncertainty, brands are more important than ever. Fundamentally, brands are about trust, right? That's the first thing we learn when we sign up for any kind of marketing 101. A brand is a mark of trust. And in hard times, people look out for consistency and quality. So 67% of South Africans are choosing tried and tested brands. And they want brands to communicate and keep the conversation open with a reassuring tone. So really, a almost North Star to have some level of consistency even when things are very turbulent. Consumers have never been more receptive to hearing our message. 91% of consumers say our brands need to talk about how we can be helpful in the new everyday life. So from a messaging point of view, they're certainly open to hearing about what your role is. And from a media consumption point of view, media consumption has absolutely skyrocketed, right? As people isolate at home, more connected than ever, almost every media channel growing double digits during the crisis. And even some more kind of data intensive platforms, social media, online video, experiencing huge growth during the crisis. So consumers are more receptive than ever. And brand purpose has never been more important. So I would like to share 4 guidelines on being more purposeful in a pandemic. It's about being clear, being authentic, being active, and being an inspiration. For each of these guidelines, I will share a kind of enduring principle that lasts throughout your brand building journey. And I'll also share how this principle is magnified and even more important in times of crisis. So while we're talking about a pandemic today, we know that the next crisis, economic downturn, it's just a fact of life. Another one could come up within the next year. Hopefully not, but that's the world we live in. We always need to be prepared. And what we've seen is that brands that were always very consistent and clear and authentic and active on their purpose were some of the first brands to have a point of view and engage with consumers at the very beginning of the crisis, whereas brands that were not clear on their purpose and what they're about kind of fumbled and didn't have a point of view and missed out on valuable opportunities to build emotional connections with consumers. So absolutely critical is that purpose has always been about having a clear role in the world. So understanding just adjusting my screen here, hope it doesn't affect anything. So it's about identifying a tension in society. So that's a problem in culture or in society, something that the world is grappling with on a larger scale, right? And then defining your brand's unique role in solving that problem. And this role needs to extend past your functional, emotional benefits into a societal benefit. So that's the enduring principle. So in a time of crisis, your brand needs to step up the role in the new, evolving, new normal, right? During a time of crisis, the same societal tensions exist, but are magnified and show up in new ways. And consumers want to know our point of view, communicate your values in the time of crisis. I think Dove is an excellent example of this, right? A brand that's probably recognized as being a pioneer in brand purpose, tackling the societal tension of unrealistic beauty standards. They've always had a point of view and a role in the world. Dove is the champion of real beauty, right? True, authentic definition of what beauty is about. So in a time of crisis, they can boldly say, courage is beautiful, and garner massive engagement behind the campaign and absolute brand love. The second principle or guideline is about being authentic. Without authenticity, purpose falls flat. So purpose really needs to be anchored in your brand or category, functional and emotional benefits, and congruent with what consumers know about you. So it's about defining why you exist, what benefits you stand for, functionally and emotionally, and a consistent brand character and expression of how you pitch up in the world. This all creates a golden thread connecting everything that your brand says or does to a really authentic purpose. When there's a kind of incongruency or mismatch on how you show up and what you're about, you tend to look like you're reaching, right? So sometimes brands comment on matters that are really none of their business, completely out of what the brand has stood for in the mind of the consumer. And in a time of crisis, authenticity is simply make or break. Consumers are increasingly vigilant of opportunistic tactics and greenwashings. They don't want brands to exploit the crisis, right? So 75% of consumers saying, do not exploit the crisis to your benefit. If you, a brand that has pitched up in a certain way in the world before, we want you to stay authentic to who you are and show up in a way that builds trust. Another excellent example is Lifebuoy. Lifebuoy has had a long-standing reason for being of protecting society's most vulnerable through the simple power of hand washing. I encourage you, when you have some time, to look up a TED Talk by Miriam Sidibe, part of the Lifebuoy team from 2014, or seems like an absolute lifetime away, where she talks about the power of hand washing and Lifebuoy's commitment to purpose. So really long-standing connection to protecting society's most vulnerable. They stand for, of course, germ protection, peace of mind, and they always show up with care and confidence. So at the very beginning of the crisis, they understood this is time for them to speak, but it's not only time for them to speak about their brand, it's time for them to speak about any brand that can help prevent the spread of coronavirus through hand washing. So a very simple example of authenticity in an ongoing way, understanding their role, and quickly being able to have a point of view that's not opportunistic, because this is what they've always been about. Purpose needs to be activated to have impact. So principle number 3, be active. So having purpose is not just about having it defined on a piece of paper, a brand ladder that lives in the marketing manager's drawer, and maybe with some creators at the agency. It really has to come to life across the business, but it has to come to life in the lives of the consumer. So across marketing touch points, everything needs to have that beautiful golden thread. And at its best, brand purpose actually creates movements in society and in the world. So your purpose comes to life in a very tangible way in the world. Now, in a time of crisis, that's about showing up when it matters most. Your purpose is, of course, consumers' needs are more acute than ever. So this is when people really need you to show up. And 88% of consumers say they want to be informed about your efforts as a brand in the face of the virus. I think Vodacom is an excellent example of this. Vodacom's purpose is about connecting people today for a better tomorrow. So to that end, in a time of crisis, they quickly collaborated with Discovery on connecting doctors to patients, connecting students to teachers, connecting medical workers to technology to track and trace COVID cases. So actual tangible action in line with their brand purpose. Very clear golden thread and very clear action in the market when it matters most. So not only does purpose need to come to life in the lives of the consumer, it needs to come to life in the organization. And that's about being an inspiration. So absolutely permeating a sense of purpose throughout the organization from the top down, that kind of permeates and engages consumers throughout their kind of touch points with consumers. I think that in service-orientated businesses, this is even more important, right? So having a sense of purpose from the top down, the person on the line at the call center needs to be as passionate about the purpose as the CEO. And we know that overperforming companies, so 85% of overperforming companies, have their purpose supported by C-suite leadership. So really from the top down, every employee buys into purpose. In times of crisis, purpose is about brave leadership and giving hope in our darkest hour. I'm sure on an individual level, we can all reflect, at the very beginning of the crisis, how comforting it was when we saw, the government and the presidents taking a proactive stance. We felt a sense of comfort and brave leadership. And certainly organizations and businesses are quite similar, right? Times of crisis require courageous leadership, the type of leadership MIT calls the transcender. So transcenders are leaders that seek the benefits for society for the world at large, and consequently deliver business success. Adrian Gore from Discovery is a fantastic example. He's a huge believer in brand purpose and attributes the success of the business to having a very clear sense of purpose, making people more healthy and enhancing and protecting lives. So everything they do, every kind of actuarial number crunching exercise they do, they really try to connect. This is easy, but translating it into a competitive advantage is not. So really showing the actionability needed to bring to life your purpose. But what Discovery has done in a time of crisis, leading from the top down, they've connected with industry giants to secure more affordable, healthy foods, online doctors, and the Discovery executive leadership team contributing a portion of their salary to the National Solidarity Fund. And in recent talks, he said that the rate of innovation to help deliver better value for consumers has been exponential. So leadership from the top in our darkest hour. So in short, the world is at a watershed. We can follow the old model of chasing money and self-interest, broken model where profit was the sole end at the expense of almost everything, people, the planet. And I don't know about you, but I think that world is old, and frankly, I'm quite tired of it. Or at this watershed, we can bravely create a new world where purpose fuels profit and profit fuels an even greater positive impact on the world. Imagine a world where brands and businesses solve society's biggest issues. And in return, consumers chose these types of companies more often, really creating a virtuous cycle and ecosystem where all players have a positive roles and all roles are valued and society thrives. So if you don't want to take it from me or from Kantar, the CEO of BlackRock, a huge asset management firm, says to prosper over time, every company must not only deliver financial performance, but we also need to show how it makes a positive contribution to society. So I invite you to unlock purpose-driven growth together. Thank you. That's
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Marilyn. Such fantastic insights. And I think to pack it into the toolkit like you did with the 4 areas that we can look at together. And I think it is about working together. And just like your previous Kantar colleagues who've spoken in these sessions, I think it really is about what basics have we always needed to look at to be authentic, to be true to our brands, the why, the what, the how, and to make sure that that's done right. And now just even amplified even more so. And so thank you for putting that together. And as I mentioned, we will be, let me just put my video on, we will be sharing Marilyn's presentation. Kantar have actually put together a fantastic slide, like on their website, a page, so you can access all the presentations. And of course, we're recording this this video, so you'll be able to have access to that as well. Now, let me unmute our second guest. I think he's doing it himself, so that's amazing. Thank you, Vaughan. Welcome to our 4th episode of Insights in Action. Marilyn, if you can just pop yourself on mute, that would be great. Oops, sorry, I didn't want to do that. I just want to get Vaughan's presentation up for all of us, so just bear with me for a second. Let me share my screen. Share screen. Please forgive me as I get onto my desktop. Here we go. And then I think most importantly here is for me to get the sound to work. Apologies, let me just open while I was testing. Sorry, Vaughan. Just show that to all of you. That's not good. Right, let me just test here more. Share. Let's see if we can sort of check that I've got the share computer sound. There we go. Well, Vaughan, before you start, let me do a quick introduction, although I'm sure it's not necessary. And then just to also say that ABInbev was the IAB SA Bookmarks 2020 Digital Brand of the Year, which we were incredibly excited about. So well done, Vaughan, on that again. So a quick introduction. Hope you can all hear me. So Vaughan Croeser is the Marketing Director for ABInbev South Africa. Vaughan has held a diverse commercial background with experience in marketing research, sales, trade marketing, and classical marketing. He joined SAB in 2003 as a sales representative and has held various sales and marketing roles across the African continent, building iconic campaigns, I think that we're all very familiar with, amongst others, for Castle Lite and Castle Lager. He is also responsible for South Africa's most well-loved beer brands, as just mentioned, and Vaughan also serves on the board of the Sports Trust, which endeavours to aid education through sports in the provision of sporting facilities in underprivileged communities. Welcome, Vaughan. Let's get started. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the intro, Paula, and thank you, Marilyn, for the really useful insights. It's great to be here and also see so many familiar names of partners and friends on the call. So I do feel very welcome and I feel at home. As I'm sure you're all aware, the last few weeks have been truly unprecedented. I know we throw that term around quite loosely. And I want to thank Kantar and IAB for the opportunity to share some of our work. SAB celebrates 125 years in South Africa this year, and we exist to bring people together for a better world. And while we haven't been able to sell beer for over 60 days, COVID-19 provided our company with, and our brands with a very unique opportunity to still fulfill our purpose. So let's get into some of it. It was the week before lockdown, and there was a lot of panic and uncertainty, and I'm sure all of us in the marketing world were also caught like a deer in headlights. The Castle Lager brand exists to make the dream of a Rainbow Nation a reality. And for more than 6 decades, it's the only brand that has pledged unbroken support to our national sporting teams in the form of sponsorship. And on the day the lockdown was announced, Castle aired this commercial to urge the nation to back the new national team that was taking the field.
We have always stood behind our nation's teams. And now we stand behind a new team, behind the attackers, the defenders, the keepers, the captains, behind the coaches, and all those who play deep into extra time. We stand behind the forwards, the wings, those on the boundary, and those on the bench. We stand behind the team that's standing behind us all.
So we started our campaign with a pledge to the Solidarity Fund by supporting the new team on the front line. In week 2, our brewing and technical team devised a way to produce sanitizer from the de-alcoholization of Castle Lager in the process when we make Castle Free. And the extracted alcohol is of such a high grade that it can be used to make 70% alcohol-based hand sanitizer. So we produced 100,000 500ml bottles, which were distributed in partnership with government to public healthcare facilities across the country. A few days later, we also started producing face shields using the recycled beer crates, and we were also able to deliver those within a few days, again with the partnership of government. We'll just share a quick video on that. So one of the great benefits of having a company with a global footprint is we are able to share ideas very quickly and scale them by sharing technology with various markets. So the hand sanitizer and the face shields was actually a best practice that came from Brazil, which we were able to repackage and apply here locally. Okay, so in the next week, we started looking at restaurants and bars. They were severely impacted by the pandemic and continue to be impacted. Now, Stella Artois exists to garner an appreciation for the joy of living and the finer things in life. And its presence in the formal restaurant and bar trade gave it a unique opportunity to set up a platform that enables consumers to nominate their local pubs and bars and pledge support in the form of a voucher that could be bought for future redemption post-lockdown. And we promised to match every pledge by adding 50% to that bill. We've had more than 500 restaurants sign up, and we've received over 1 million rand in donations thus far. Let's have a look.
Is it just a place you go to? Or is it more than that? Is it your local, your spot, your honji, where your community comes together and everyone knows your name? Is it where you have a favorite waiter and the chef knows just how you like it? Picture that place. Picture that bar, that restaurant, that spot, your spot. Hold on to that picture and make sure the place that means everything to you is there when you get back. Here's what you can do. 1. Buy a digital voucher for your favorite bar or restaurant. 2. Stella Artois will add an extra 50% for free. 3. Redeem it after lockdown and enjoy 150% of the value. Go to rallyforyourbarandrestaurant.com to get started. Together, we can save your spot and make sure that the last round or meal you had there wasn't the final one.
So this platform is still up and running and available, and I'd urge you, if you have a favorite local in your community, to go and support them. In week 4, we were now approaching Easter, and we knew that urge for belonging and togetherness and going home to your loved ones would be severely affected by the lockdown regulations. Now, Castle Milk Stout exists to preserve and celebrate African culture and heritage. And this poignant message urged our communities and our consumers to protect their elders by staying home over Easter.
Ikhaya, likuphi ikhaya? Nina nilikhaya. Nina ningabagcini besibongo sethu. Siboshwe ngesibopho segazi lenu. Ingakho sizonivikela. Sinivikele kwesabeni. Sinivikele ebungozini. Sinivikele ngokuthi singabuye ekhaya kuleli Pasika.
Audio Jungle.
Okay, and as we moved into week 5, we turned our attention to our tavern partners. Now, taverns in South Africa represent the majority of the formalized in-township economy. And with approximately 30,000 legitimate tax-paying small business owners suddenly being unable to provide for their families due to the lockdown on beer sales, we stepped up and in partnership with ShopRite Checkers, we were able to distribute 17,000 food vouchers to these families in an effort to relieve their plight. And it was very encouraging to see, but also quite distressing that within a few days, 14,000 of these vouchers were redeemed. Let's have a look. Yes, the taverns remain a critical part of our economy, and at about the same time, it was also the maturation of our SAB Zenzele broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Scheme, which during that week also paid out 14 billion rand to the beneficiaries of that scheme. So it was really a good week, I think, for our partners. So in week 6, and this is actually a program that we hope to kick off a lot earlier because of the urgency, but it required quite a bit of technical development. So the surge in gender-based violence during lockdown cannot be ignored. Calling Black Label has over the last 3 years championed a movement called No Excuse for Gender-Based Violence. And as a brand that exists to recognize the champion within all men, we couldn't stay silent. And working with government and Lifeline, we set up a toll-free WhatsApp line that enabled victims and potential perpetrators to have a silent WhatsApp conversation with a Lifeline counselor. Our insight being that a phone call in a confined lockdown environment might be very dangerous and more difficult. So the platform received more than 5,000 conversations in the first 4 days of being operational. In fact, the demand has been so high that we've had to invest a further 200,000 Rand in equipping Lifeline to increase the fielding capacity to handle the increase in calls and conversations that were so desperately needed. Let's have a look.
Vaughan, you're just on mute.
Sorry about that.
No worries, you're back.
A few children banging down the door here. So on a lighter note, Castle celebrated its 125th birthday on the 17th of May. And we also had some really big and exciting celebrations planned. And we realized that our fans were experiencing similarly dampened birthday celebrations. So to celebrate our birthday, we pledged that all people who missed their birthday celebrations because of lockdown could register on our online platform, and we would give them a voucher for 12 complimentary Castle lagers to share with their friends after lockdown. We had 40,000 registrations to date and more than 15 million impressions on this post. So there was definitely a true insight there around how dampened the birthday celebrations were during lockdown. So now that we're finally in a position to be able to resume trading on the 1st of July, our biggest concern is to avoid unnecessary infections due to the high demand brought about by prohibition. And each of our brands is currently preparing very powerful responsible drinking messaging to educate our staff, our consumers, as well as our retail partners to implement safety precautions as we start trading again. And the way we approached this was to use our brand's values and their purpose to map them according to the ROPA values, and then look at what the consumer pain points are and what dangers there are around irresponsible drinking that we could voice and in a legitimate way play a positive role. So that was a few of the examples of what we've been busy with, and to maybe make a small link to what Marilyn has been speaking about in the opening section. What we enjoyed about this work was that it wasn't advertising, or we weren't trying to make a statement or to tell a story. Every single piece we produced was in an effort to reduce harm or to relieve suffering or to assist the front line. There was nothing done in a self-serving way. They were all causes which touched our business and touched the 250,000 families that form part of our value chain, and we really wanted to make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks, Vaughan. Wow, that was incredible and just amazing to unpack it, week by week, and how quickly you mobilized. And I know you said earlier that as a brand of scale, one can mobilize quickly, but I can just imagine like how tough that is, and some of the key decisions you needed to make along the way in order to make sure that your people were looked after, and that you were doing the same for the country and the areas that you look after. So just a huge congratulations, and that's the feedback also coming through on the chat, just really positive, and just a big well done. And I think if I look at Marilyn's presentation when she was talking about transcenders, I've certainly heard the word, but I've never heard it applied in our industry and to leadership. So I think it's amazing to have good case studies and good examples for brands and the full ecosystem to look at and to go, right, how do I do this for our brand? How do I make sure it's authentic for us? Marilyn, I don't know if you want to comment at all about that space and how you guys are finding that with your brands that you're working with. Have you on mute? I just muted you, so that's not useful. Can you unmute your? There we go. Thank you.
I missed the last comment, Paula.
Oh, no worries. I was just saying that it's amazing to see, you spoke about transcenders, as part of the brave leadership that's required, I think always, but especially at this time. And I think before COVID, if we thought we had to move quickly and do multiple things at once and look after ourselves, our country, our company, our communities, it's just all on at the moment. And to have positive examples of that is just so important, like the one today that Vaughan has taken us through for ABInbev. And I just wanted to see from your side and your clients, we've had a few great examples so far in this series. The question was really, speaking about that brave leadership and how your the sentiment of your clients at this time in general.
Yeah, I think, of course, we work with a cross-section of industries and clients, and it's really been fascinating to see how different organizations navigate this time. But what's very clear is, organizations that have a clear purpose have been able to act faster and have been able to turn the crisis into an opportunity for their businesses, right? So some people have kind of dialed down and gone, quiet, not really knowing what to do. I think we can all empathize, right? It's absolutely unprecedented. There's that word again. But I think fundamentally, leadership is about taking people somewhere. And when you know where you're going, you know what your role is, your job is a lot easier to act and stand up in a time of crisis. So that's really been our observation across industries and across businesses.
Yeah. I think in some of our conversations leading up today, you know, I think to take people forward and to take people on the journey, you know, as a brand, I think it takes great partnerships. I think we spoke quite a lot about that on you know, leading up to today. And I know, Vaughan, you were chatting about a couple of partnerships, especially, you know, working with the government and you know, in the lieu of the upcoming, I suppose everyone's very excited about the next phase. But maybe you can just share a little bit about partnerships and where you felt progress or learning.
Absolutely. I think partnership is critical, right? I think working together and using the networks and also I think when we think about, for example, in the sponsorship space, where we play a really large role in developing sports in the country, now is really a critical time to show the strength of those partnerships. If I think about creative partners, many of the agencies working on our brands have been our partners again for decades, and so there's really I think a lot of trust and a deep understanding of our brands and our purpose as an organization. So I couldn't agree more. Partnership is at the heart of this.
Yeah, I think I've seen that come up time and time again in our presentations in our Wednesday webinars with Kantar, that, you know, relationships and even the relationship we have even more so right now with our customers, and as a customer, and all of us being customers, I think we know when it's being done right and when it's not. And yeah, I think again, I'm just seeing all these posts and I can't wait to share them in terms of the chat and just people acknowledging, you know, the hard work and the authenticity of it. We've actually got students, publishers, agencies, and brands all commenting. So again, really great to see the broad spectrum, you know, and of who's here today.
Paula, I've always held the view that, you know, I'm referring to the people on this call. We have a big responsibility. All of us here have large platforms, potentially large platforms and circles of influence. And amidst a lot of fear, anxiety, and negativity that's in the world right now, I think the people on this call are leaders in their respective fields, right? And I think at the beginning of this pandemic, someone said to me that he's been preparing for this his whole life. And it kind of struck a chord with me. And it made me think, like, we need to be someone who people can rely on. Our brands, our organizations, you know, us as individuals, we've been preparing for this our whole lives. And I think we need to be, you know, people who others can rely on and who can really make a difference. It's not a time now it's okay to be scared, but I think it's not a time to shy away from that responsibility, but also the opportunity that we have as very privileged people.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's why 100%. And I think that's why showing working case examples of, you know, just, you know, that insight around, you know, people in trouble not being able to take the call in the next room to get help. That's that insight, and in using, you know, a WhatsApp channel or a channel where people can communicate privately, and then partnering with Lifeline and then supporting them to scale in order to drive that forward. I think, you know, that key insight, and then how does one use technology in any way possible to help mobilize these partnerships and to kind of take effect. So yeah, a huge well done. Yeah, again, I'm not actually getting any questions. I'm just getting lovely comments. Like, what I love about SAB's approach is that this is from Jenna Hansen. Thanks, Jenna. Is that they haven't applied a one-size-fits-all and applied to all brands. They've understood each brand and created a bespoke response for each, whether it is understanding the need for certain messages in a vernacular, etc. So, you know, I think just, you know, people acknowledging, you know, all the different areas that you guys have looked at and how important that is. Oh, here's a question from Neil Gavender. Sorry, I interrupted you, Vaughan. Go for it. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I missed a little bit of that, but I think on that point of different brands playing a role, and before releasing a lot of this work, there was some, we were always anxious about what the response would be and whether it would be seen as self-serving or trying to capitalize on a very difficult situation. One thing that certainly helped was sharing work with a very diverse and broad range of people before actually going live with anything. Having very diverse teams and partners enables us to make sure that the communication that we put out there is not biased or offensive in any way. And I think that, again, talks to very broad and diverse partnerships.
Right. I agree, Anna. That's a good point to acknowledge. And then making sure that you're, in order to move quickly, but purposefully, almost those minimum viable products that you're testing, which is just good practice, and really just deploying that. I think that's fantastic. We do have a question here from Neil Govender. This is for Vaughan, but please do chip in, Marilyn, and we'll give you an opportunity as well, but maybe in terms of other clients. But the question to Vaughan, to you, in a time where many other companies are clawing back and reducing investments, how did you convince ABInbev to invest in purpose advertising comms, if you're able to comment?
No, sure. I think the reality of the situation for SAB is that we were not able to generate income or trade for now for beyond 60 days. So it's had a significant impact on our business. The numbers are quite stark, and our first priority was to ensure the safety of our people, but also to maintain the business, because so many families rely on our full value chain, from farmers to agencies, glass suppliers. It really is a far-reaching organization. And I think that the question around but cutting budgets, absolutely, we've been very prudent in the way we've managed our costs in the first half of this year. In fact, looking into the second half of the year, we'll also be very, very prudent in managing those costs. The work that I shared today, I guess they were critical. They're critical to our consumers, to our partners, our employees, our retailers. I don't think there was a major debate around whether we should do them or not. It was the right thing to do. But yes, we have obviously been severely affected and have had to watch our budgets extremely closely.
Yeah. I think, and I'm sure Marilyn can comment that and actually there's a comment from, before this question, but it resonates, I think, with this answer, that, your Carling Black Label program, those were all in place, years, kind of a year or two before. So these were not new budgets, but that you were continuing them, and fantastic that while being prudent, you were able to still support those programs for communities and for our country. The comment here from Karen Scher, and maybe this is where you can comment, Marilyn, is, she's saying, as an SAB alumni, welcome Karen, everything they are doing resonates with the organization's value set. You can't wake up one day and decide to be purposeful. It has to be in your DNA. So, well, a compliment to ABInbev, but then to you, Marilyn, what does a brand do if they haven't necessarily had a purpose-driven marketing or purpose-driven core to their business? And maybe that's when they need to phone you and book an appointment. But if there's any maybe first step that they can take, and your presentation obviously speaks a lot to that, the why and the four steps. But maybe you can comment.
Sure. There. I think 2 points just to build on the discussion on investing when it's really tough to do so. Discussion you and Vaughan were having earlier. I think everything we've learned about communication in the past decades shows that when you do go dark on your marketing media, it's so much harder to claw back your key measures like awareness and consideration and, of course, key brand equity drivers. So the trick is really finding the most efficient media mix and keep your voice even during a kind of tough time, when you spend money on your brands, it really shouldn't be seen as an expense. It's an investment in your business into the future. So that's an important point to just close off that discussion. On your second question on where to start with purpose, the answer is to look at the world around you, right? So when it comes to defining purpose, it's about understanding tensions in society, society as a whole. And if you're dealing with an organization with a portfolio of brands, it's really an exercise of understanding the cultural tensions that exist within the world, and how can each of the brands in the portfolio find a unique tension or societal role. So I think the slide that Vaughan has on the screen, it's the first time I'm seeing this, but it's quite interesting how they've kind of find different roles for themselves as brands. They each stand for different things, and all addressing different tensions in society. So the first point is to look outside at culture and finding cultural tensions. Yeah, that's where you. It's looking at the consumer. Importantly, it's looking beyond just consumer insight. So consumer insight is important, but you need to look bigger to cultural insights.
Right. Well, thank you. We do have just a few more questions, but I think with 5 minutes to go, I think I'll just use the opportunity for you both, if you have anything else that you'd like to add before we just talk about next week and close off for our Wednesday webinar. Vaughan, would you like to go first? If you have any speak, or maybe speak to the upcoming week ahead for ABInbev with the new phase.
Yeah, I think, thank you very much, Paula. It was great to speak to all of you and to share some of this work. I mentioned that I feel, you know, we all have a responsibility in a role to play in helping those that aren't as fortunate as us in this particular situation. Coming up for us this week, we're preparing to resume trading. We're extremely excited to be brewing again and be doing the stuff that we do, grow barley and, you know, and provide a great product. But we're also very aware of the dangers accompanied with this responsibility that government has given us. So we're going to be working really hard now with our trade partners to provide click and collect services, provide sanitizers, masks, encourage and helping with social distancing using some of our eventing equipment, but also getting the messages out there as this slide is showing, so that our brands have a strong voice in encouraging people to drink responsibly, buy responsibly, and also just practice, you know, all the safety measures around social distancing. So I think it's going to be a very, very exciting, but also a very busy and tough few days ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll be there with you in making sure we're getting our restock.
Well, we've been saying savor that first beer, really sip it slowly and enjoy it.
Great, thanks. And Marilyn, from your side, anything? I know you covered so much, and again, the commentary, you know, always for the Kantar team is, wow, you covered everything. So, but if there's anything else that you'd like to add before we close off.
I would say start today on purpose. It's one of those things that always seem important but never quite urgent. But I would really implore everyone to start today. The world needs it. And your brand and your business won't be sorry that you've taken the time to figure it out. And then on a personal note, I'm just sending my absolute best wishes to everyone and their businesses and their well-being. I sincerely hope that you are all doing well and will continue to get through this together.
Thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, 100%. Thank you. I think it is up to all of us to participate, and I think just by being on this call, you're already showing that. I loved in Lynn's presentation last week, the last slide I think was not ready, set, go. So I think you've just summarized that very well there, Marilyn. Thank you. Right. Thank you to everyone for being on the call. Next week, we have another very exciting session. We are looking at retail at a time of crisis. And that is with Norman Renneker, who's the Retail Sales and Shopper Director for the Consulting Division of Kantar South Africa. Norman is an experienced customer development leader with demonstrated history of working in the consumer goods and retail industries across categories and channels, specifically e-commerce. And I think this is going to be very important for us to look at in the upcoming week. And he is very passionate about campaigns that don't simply create awareness, but go ahead to change consumer behavior. So thank you again for another fantastic webinar. Thank you to Kantar for providing the insights. Thank you to Marilyn for your incredible presentation, which will be available, and we'll share it in the thank you emailer tomorrow morning. That will also include this video if you'd like to share it with any of your colleagues, as well as the invite to next week's session. And thank you, Vaughan, and to Team ABInbev for sharing your weekly progression leading up to the week ahead. Thank you to everyone, and we wish you a safe and prosperous week ahead. Bye.